marshalling. Group 1 drivers, please be out for marshalling. Group 1 drivers, out to the track. Track is open. Group 3 drivers out for marshalling. This is your last qualifying. Track is open, track is open. Starting orders. Blue, Amy, Eric, Steve, and Tom. Track is open, drivers. I see Steve on the track.
1 minute to start.
Hello. Huh? You press your brake, is it?
Go to your start position.
Uh,
30 seconds to start.
Lost Binance.
Start. Order. Car. 5 car. 1 car. 4 car. 2 car. 6.
Alright, we're waiting on Amy and Tom. Amy and Tom. And Marshall from the fast group. You guys drive very fast. You come out for marshalling very slow. Come on, guys. Let's go, let's go. Waiting for Amy and Tom. Amy and Tom. Amy is clocking. We're waiting on Tom. Tom, please pass the line, Tom. I need to check your transponder first. Go past the line, Tom. 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 Alright, please line the car back up. Drivers ready, marshals ready. Good luck, drivers. Let's go racing when I call out your name. Blue,
Start.
Amy, Eric,
Car. 5
Steve, Tom.
4
Tom, okay, alright. All cars are moving.
3.
Here comes Blue to clock his first lap. 12-3, Amy 12-4. Eric doing 14-1, Steve 13-4. Amy takes top spot from Blue on the second lap with a 12-5. Gap is 500ths of a second. Amy's driving the white and pink. Down to the transponder line. 12-2 Amy, Blue 12-5. Steve with a 13-3. Eric just spins up. Blue 13 flat. Amy 12-3. When you get a chance, Blue, just let Amy pass. He's faster than you this round. Oh, watch it, watch it. Take it easy. Amy 12-9. Blue first race. Doing 13-3 on the last lap. Still in second. Yep, 1.5 seconds.
Drive.
Driving mentor, ECW, looking on from side. Come on, Blue, you can do it. Amy. Another top 3 consistent laps now. On the third run of the day. He's just woken up, just 9 for the final. Back to back, top 2, top 3, top 2, top 3. That's Amy. Another top 3 there. Blue, top 7. Steve, you're in third. Eric in fourth. Watch it, Eric. Here comes the leader. Thank you. Amy, the youngest driver we have today. Only 1.1 meter short.
3 minutes to drive.
Another top 4 there by Amy. Watch it there, Steve. That's the leader. Thank you, Steve. I see Eric going down. Something's not right. Amy, another top 5. Consistent lap times with all this practice. Practice is paying out. Another top 5. Watch it there, Tom. That's the leader behind you. Please let him pass. Thank you, Tom. Good tight lines there by our young man. 3 minutes past, less than 2 more minutes to run. It's still Amy. Last time by 12.6. Blue managed to find some pace. We have a top 5. Behind you, Steve, is second place. Oh, work together, guys. Tom, that's second place behind you, Tom. Thank you. Still Amy, another top 5. Here comes Blue to the line. 13.3, slow on there. Steve with a 15. 12.3 there by Amy. With 1.5 minutes to wait. Asrun, he is getting very, very fast. 12.5 last time by. Consistent driving by the young men. Another 12.5, careful that up. Thank you. 1 more minute, 1 more minute. It's Amy from Blue, from Steve and Tom. Another top 3 there by the young man. Last 40 seconds, 4-0. One more top 3 there. Oh, he rolls it with 30 seconds left. That was a 13.8, slow one there. Carry on driving, drivers. Tell everyone to stop.
Finish. Car.
Amy, you're done. Caught on the line.
Finish.
Blue, you're done. Tom, you are finished.
Time is
Oh,
over.
Tom, one more lap, Tom. Sorry, one more lap.
Finish.
Carry on driving, one more lap. Steve, you're done. Steve, you're done. All drivers complete. All drivers complete. Next up, Group 2. Amy wants to race with Uncle Abun. Group 2, we have Nicola, Adrian, Jolam, Aojang, Abun, Tapana, and Julian. Group 1 drivers, I need you guys out for marshalling. Group 1 drivers, I see Steve, I see Blue. Where's Eric and Tom? Amy is out for marshalling as well after doing tech. Good one there. Here comes Eric. Where is Tom? Where are the marshals? I'm still short of one more marshal. Anyway guys, the starting order is Nicola, Adrian, Joe, Aojang, Abun, Tapana and Julian. Drivers, ready. If anyone sits down, please get him out for marshalling. Let's go racing when I call out your name. Nicola, Adrian, Joe, Aojang, Boon, Tapana, Julian.
4.
All drivers clocking. Work together guys. Work together. This is your last qualifying. If you see a faster car, just let him pass. Oh, Aojang there. Got stuck in the transponder line. Currently top spot is Julian 2 and 11-8. You see that green car coming up towards you. Just let him pass. He's going super quick. Then it's Adrian, followed by Nicola. Julian there, dropped down to third after having to move within traffic. Adrian now on top spot. Nicola in second, Julian in third, Joe Lam in fourth. Adrian there collecting the pole. Steve, please adjust the pole as well. Push it inward, Steve.
4 minutes to
Steve,
drive.
please adjust the pole and push it inward. After Joe Lam, alright, go. Okay, wait. No, not that pole. This one here. Yep, push it inward. 1 minute pass, less than 4 minutes to drive. Alright. Good one. Okay, y'all. Is Nicola back on top spot? Joe Lam in second. Julian 2 in third. Gap between Julian and Joe is 0.8 seconds. J&J show. Followed by Abun in fourth. Aojang is 5 seconds behind Abun. Adrian in sixth. Tapana in seventh. Julian now moves up to top spot with the best lap of 11.5. 2 minutes past, less than 3 minutes to race. Work together, guys.
3 minutes.
Tapana, that's Joe Lam, thank you. Aojang, you have Nicola behind you. It's Julian from Nicola from Joe Lam. Julian has cleared traffic. Just needs to focus on his line. So does Joe Lam. Nicola still has Aojang in front of him, both clocking similar lap time. Last time by Nicola 12 flat. Joe Lam 11.8, Julian 12 flat. Gap between these three cars is only 1/10. Nicola, Julian and Joe is separated by 1/10 of a second. Joe Lam now on top spot with 11.7. Still, gap between 1, 2 and 3 is only 1/10 of a second. Julian spins out, losing a bit of time. 1.2 seconds from Joe Lam. Nicola now back on top. Joe Lam at a slow lap. Gap now 0.6 seconds between Joe Lam and Nicola. With 1.5 minutes left. 1.5 minutes. Marshall, watch it there. Watch it. Clear. Someone else throws it. Got collected by Adrian at the chicane. Aojang pulling off. It's still Nicola. Julian moves back on top. Joe Lam in third. Gap is 2 seconds. Final 1 minute, guys. 1 more minute. Last time by Nicola 12-2, Joe Lam 12-1. Julian full 12 flat. This time by 11-9 Nicola. 12-1 Jolam. 12 flat Julian. Work together guys, work together. Still Nicola from Jolam. Tapana, watch it, that's Julian behind you. Second spot. Carry on driving, drivers. Carry on driving till I tell everyone to stop.
Finished.
Nicola, you're done.
6. Finished.
Jolam, you're done. Julian, you're done. Adrian, you're done. Tapana, all drivers complete. Taking this run with 25 left, 5 flat.
4.
Nicola in second. Julian with 25 left, 501. Jolam with 25,502. Abun 25,507. Adrian 25,509. Tapana 24,502. Next up, Group 3 and 5.
Okay. Okay, so we need Nicholas into track. Five minutes. 5 minutes. Ismail, can you turn down the volume?
Five minutes to start. Start. Order. Car. 3. Car. 1. Car. 7. Car. 4. Car. 5. Car. 2. Car. 6.
checks it. Group 2 to Marshall, please. Group 2. Julian, Joe, Abun, Adrian, Tapana. Looks like Sean Lee is sitting this out, having already secured TQ.
Is this your first TQ? Sean, your first TQ in UTF?
Sean secures his first ever TQ here at UTF. Stand by for Facebook post from Sebastian Lee. Proud Papa moment. Hashtag. Waiting for PY and Bunyang to check in. PY reverts to his other shell. Looks like the baby blue not giving him the luck he wants. I don't know what blue it is. PY, please check in.
45 seconds to start. Go to your start position.
To low one.
30 seconds to start.
Start.
Order. Car 3.
Drivers, ready. Start order. PY, Bunyang, EC, Hasron, Ismail, Sebastian. Drivers ready. Marshals ready. Let's go racing. To right.
Start.
Bunyang,
On.
EC,
Car 3.
Hasron,
1.
Ismail,
7.
Sebastian.
4. 5. 2. 6.
Looks like there was a wrong order start. Could be a 5-second penalty. PY comes in with a 11-2. The race order after, we will let the third lap come in. Oh no, Ismail goes into the Bermuda Triangle. Sean, please move the pipe for me, Sean. Move it more. Some more. Yeah, okay. The leader PY Tang, followed by Bunyang, EC, Hasron, Ismail, Sebastian.
4 minutes to drive.
It's a 1.5-second lead for Bunyang. So it's PY, Bunyang, EC, Hasron, Sebastian, Ismail, Sebastian. Next lap, PY Tang, best lap 11-2, 9-6, Bunyang 11-5, EC 11-6, Hasron 11-6, Ismail 11-4, Sebastian 11-8.
Three minutes to drive.
Two down, 3 to go. PY on pace for 26, 5 laps. EC comes in with 11-6. Ismail goes to B3, 11-5. Gap between Ismail and Bunyang in second place is just 0.4 seconds. Bunyang had 11-6 last lap round, 11-7 this time. Let's see what Ismail comes in with. Ismail with an 11-5, just 0.2 behind Bunyang now.
Minutes to drive.
EC comes in with 11-7. BY 11-6, Bunyang 11-6, Ismail 11-6. Coming up to 3.5 minutes, 1.5 to go. BY Tang, your leader at the moment. Oh, mistake there by Hapsuan in front. At the front chicane. BY now up to Ismail now up to P2. Oh, mistake there by Seth.
One minute to drive.
One minute to go. We'll be running the bump up finals after this.
Seconds to drive.
It's now 2.1 seconds behind BY. Into our last lap now.
Finished. Car. Run. Finished.
Finish the lap you're on.
Finished. Finished. Time is over. Race finished.
Okazda. BY takes away 26.501. Ismail 503. Bunyang 04. Asron 07. EC 08. And Sebastian in 25.501. Okay, we'll sort out the ranking list now. We'll sort out the qualifying and go straight into sum-up final. Your top 6. Taking the TQ, Sean Lee. BY Tang will take P2, Ismail 3. Bunyang 4, EC 5, and Asron will take P6. So running in the B sum-up final, 1 will be Nicholas, 2, Joe, Adrian 3, Sebastian 4, Julian 5, and HJ 6. In the C bump-up final will be Abun, Tapana, Emmy, Calvin, Eric, Steve, and Tom. So we'll run the C bump-up finals first, okay? So it will be Abun, Tapana, Emmy, Calvin, Eric, Steve, and Tom. Will start in 15 minutes. 15 minutes. 11:55. So Abud, Tapana, Emmy, Calvin, Eric, Steve, and Tom. You'll be running next at 11:55. here, the lower finals we will be running. The bump-up finals do not count for the final results. They're just for the purposes of bumping up. And then we'll run 2 finals for the remaining. And the best 1 or 2 will count.
Ismail.
Can you check the printer?
Alright. 4 minutes to start. 4 minutes. Eric, paging Eric. Can you help me, Eric? Eric. Sean, can you help me, Sean? Sean Lee. Can you crack the towel? Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Sorry. Okay, test. Test mic. Okay, guys, can I hear the test? Oh my God, my mic. Alright, this is C-Main bump up final. C-Main with Abun, Tapana, Amy, Kevin, Eric, Steve, and Tom. Drivers, please proceed down to the track. A-Main drivers out for marshalling. A-Main drivers. Sean to tech. Sean, please proceed to tech. Making it into the direct A-Main is Sean Lee, top qualifier. Second place, BY Tang. Ismail in third, Bunyang in fourth. ECW in sixth. ECW in fifth. Hasrun in sixth. Direct A-Main. In the B-Main, we have Nicola, Joe Lam, Adrian, Sebastian Lee, Julian Fu, and Hao Zhang. This run in the C-Main bump up, we have Abun, Tapana, Amy, Kevin, Eric, Steve, and Tom. Top 4 drivers will be running the next final, but the top 2 driver will have a chance to run another bump up. So please make sure you guys have your batteries ready. Steve, you're clocking. Eric, you are clocking. Blue is clocking. Come on, where's everyone else? Abun, Tapana, Amy, and Tom. Abun, Tapana, Amy, and Tom. Abun is clocking. I need the A-Main drivers out for marshalling, please. A-Main drivers out for marshalling. I see Bunyang. Sean is at tech. PY Tang is cleaning his tire.
5 minutes to start. Start. Order. Car 1, car 2,
Come on, guys.
car 3,
We're
car
waiting on
4,
Tapana
car
and
5, car
Amy.
6,
Tapana and Amy.
7.
Amy is on the driver's stand. Where's Tapana? Brrr. Tapana. Brrr. Is already on the track, clocking. Good one there. Hasrun, please help me line up the car. Thank you, very nice. No more laps, no more laps. The straight is closed. Starting order in full. Bunya. Sorry, starting order Abun. Tabun. Tabun in first. Tapana in second. Our youngest driver in third. Blue in fourth. Eric in fifth. Steve in sixth. And Tom in seventh. Okay guys, do take note. There won't be any countdown. Drivers. Sean?
On number 3.
Number 3 shifted. Okay. Drivers, do take note. There won't be any countdown. So listen for the tone. The tone will sound like this. Do not move. Do not move. Alright, so that is the tone. This is bump up. C-Main bump up final. Good luck, drivers. Let's go racing at the sound of the tone. Drivers ready? Marshals ready. Here we go. Watch it, guys. Watch it. Out again. It's Abuno. Watch it there. Amy, please wait for Tapana. Amy, please stop and wait for Tapana. Okay, go. It's Abun bumping up. Abun in the lead. Tan Chi Bun about to lap the field. Tan Chi Bun in first. Blue in second. Tapana looks very, very racy here. Missing the first qualifying. Managed to figure out his car now for the team in final. He goes airborne. Doesn't break the car. No harm done. But dropped all the way down to fourth. So Abun in the lead. Tan Chi Bun has a 5-second lead from Blue in second. 2 potential bump up. But here comes Amy. Amy is only 0.5 seconds behind Blue. Both cars going to the chicane. Down to the hairpin. Amy looks to the inside. Can't make it stick. Watch it there, Tom. Here comes second and third. Steve, second and third is coming out towards you. Good patient driving there by Amy. This is the shortest one on the driver's end. Everything alright, good one there. And here comes Tapana as well into the picture. Blue is holding the whole traffic up. Holding his position very, very well. Amy is being patient. That's from our young boy. Super patient. Take the inside. He makes it stick. Blue looks to the inside. A bit of bump. Amy still holds the position. Amy, please stop. Wait for Blue. Wait for Blue. No, one more car, Amy. One more car. Alright, go. Tapana goes up to second spot. Abun can take it easy. Tan Chi Bun has a huge 1 lap lead, but he still enjoys going airborne. Tapana in second, Blue in third. Blue spins out. Amy goes up to third. Watch it there, Tom. Watch it. One more car. Alright, nice one. Now Amy has his sights on Tapana. 2.5 minutes fast. Less than 2.5 more minutes to race. Yep, last time by.
Two minutes to drive.
Yep, last time by was 3 seconds. Let's see what's on this lap. It's 1.8 seconds. The young kid is on fire. Tapana clipping the curb. Going down to the chicane. The car looks a bit lazy. Last time by Tapana 12.3. Amy 12.8. Tapana now coming into traffic. Watch it there guys. Eric, you have Tapana coming up towards you. Tom, there's Tapana behind you. And Steve, you have Tapana coming up shortly. Tom, one more car, thank you. Less than 1 more minute to race, less than 1 more minute, drivers.
1 minute to drive.
Tapana still trying his best to hold second place for the bump up. Thank you, Eric. Steve, you have third place behind you, the young kid. Thank you, Steve. Gap is down to 1 second. 1 second between Tapana and Amy. Last time by Tapana 12.5, Amy 12.1. Look even closer now on the track. The red car and the pink car passing the transponder line. Last 30 seconds. Tapana from Amy. 2 more laps, at least 2 more laps. Anything can happen. Last 10 seconds, drivers. 10 seconds. There should be 1 more lap after it for these 2 drivers as well. Tapana clears the curve down to the chicane. Is Tapana going to choke on the last lap?
Finish. 5. Finish.
Tapana takes second from Amy. Just 0.9 seconds behind. All drivers complete. Taking the win. Tan Chi Bun. Tapana and Abun, please get yourself ready. We are starting in 1 minute. Tapana and Abun, we are starting in 1 minute. Final B, we have Nicola, Joel Lam, Adrian Kwek, Sebastian Lee, Julian Fu, Hao Jiang, Tan Chi Bun, Tapana Bruk. Amy, please proceed to tag Amy. Amy, and you are needed at track. Blue, Eric, Steve and Tom, please proceed out for marshalling. Go to tag and check people car. It's fantastic weather today at Urban Play Space. After a wet week, we have a dry race day. Some of the drivers caught up with their setup, setting up their cars in the cold, and it's not working that well under the hot sun. Eric, what happened to your finger? Karena super glue. People tell you glue tire, you glue finger. Track is open, drivers. Eric is already out for marshalling. Nicola has her strength supporting from the back because it's too hot to stay in front. Nicola clocking. Are you sure you want to use used tires? Because some of them are running new tires. It's 0.4 seconds. But tires is a 0.4 second difference, new and old. Experience matters, yes. The Paravrut is on the stand. He looks tired. He gets to run with Uncle Joe. Uncle Joe shaking his head early. A bit worried. A bit worried. He meets up with Tapana B again. Do not stop at the spirit. The track is still open. We're checking transponders. Sebastian Lee appearing in the beaming after a very long time. Or someone just rolls it. Adrian is trying to make sure he finish all the rolling during practice. Tapana is already clocking. Here comes Joe Lam. Steve, Eric, Sam already out for marshalling. And can we have some of the Amen drivers out to volunteer as well, please? It's a full grid, 8 drivers. Purple is out. Purple. Purple is already out. Here comes Tan Chi Bun, the previous bump up. Tan Chi-boon is on fire. He is planning to bomb to A. They're waiting for Tan Chi-boon to pass the line and I'll close up the straight. Tan Chi-boon, Tan Chi-boon. Alright. No more laps. Starting on pole, Nicola. In second, Jolam. In third, Adrian. Watch it at the straight. Watch it, guys. Asrun's ready at the straight. Sebastian in fourth. Mr. Fu in fifth. Hao Jiang in sixth. Tan Chi-boon in seventh. Tapan of ini. Drivers, just take note. This is the starting tone. Alright, do not go. There will not be any countdown. So, drivers, ready. Marshals ready. Good luck, drivers. Let's go racing at the sound of the tone. And they're off. It's Nicola. Adrian, the opportunist, took for the inside. Sebastian, go sideways. Watch it there, Seb. Please hang on a while for Julian. Good one. Auja rolls it at the transponder line. Racing incident there between the few drivers. It's Nicola pulling a gap. Oh, those two cars. Marshall, careful on the straight. Keep high on the straight. Keep high. Go, go, go. Adrian tries to look to the inside. Go to the outside. Go then touch. Nicola is already full at 1 second gap. Jolam went a bit wide. Tapana moves up to third. Oh, the first place is on the roof. Watch it, guys. Work together. It's Adrian now and the whole bunch of cars. Watch it, guys. Watch it. Work together. Clean driving. Clean driving. Sebastian still holding second from Adrian. They have a settle to score. Hey, Marshall. Sebastian and Adrian has a settle to score from the last Domini Cup when Adrian took Sebastian out. Two leaders has a 3-second gap from Abun, who is actually in third. Nicola in fourth. Jolam in fifth. Someone there having a body tap. What happened? I did not see.
3 minutes to drive.
So it's Abun now moving on top spot. In second. Chances of bumping up is very high for Abun. Nicola in third. Jolam looks super racy as well. Giving Nicola a very hard time. Sebastian is all alone up front. With clear traffic, Abu, Nicola and Jolam are fighting for position. Julian is 1 lap down. Work together, guys. Work together. Julian, watch it. Keep low. It's still Amun holding strong in second. With 2 more minutes to race. 2 more minutes. Tan Chi-boon in second. Nicola in third. And Jolam in fourth. Jolam losing a bit of pace. Oh, watch it there. Clean driving between those two. Nicola looking super aggressive. Went a bit wide. Nicola moves back out to second. Tan Chi-boon fighting back. Here comes Tan Chi-boon. Takes the curve. All 3 cars on the long straight. Allows Uncle Joe back into this fight with 1.5 minutes. Abu went a bit wide. Racing incident there. It was a block. Abu rolls it. Go low. I am tired. So it is Nicola in second from Joe Lam. Then it is Tapana, Adrian, Tanchibun, Julian Chilling. His plan is going strong. With less than 1 minute to drive, it seems like everything has settled down, but anything can happen. A while ago we saw the leader roll it. That was Nicola, but he managed to find his way back up to second. Sebastian taking it easy now with a huge lead of a 4 seconds.
30 seconds to drive.
Last 30 seconds.
Seconds to drive.
Joe Lam is in third. Most likely starting on pole later in the B main. His plan is going strong. Tapana is in fourth. Tan Chibun was in second a while ago. Now in fifth. Adrian in sixth. Final 3 seconds. 2, 1. Complete the lap you're on, drivers. Complete the lap. Nicola, you're done. Rolam, you're done. Tapana, you're done. All drivers complete. Taking the win. Sebastian Lee. In second, Nicola. In third, Joe Lam. In fourth, Tapana B. In fifth, Tan Chibun. In sixth, Adrian Quack. In seventh, Aojang Quack. In no way related with Adrian Quack. In eighth, Julian Fu. Not related with the two Quacks as well. Next up, A-Main drivers. We will start racing at 12:45. 1, 2, 4, 5. It is lunch break now. Lunch break. Just a recap, just in case if you guys are still around. In the C main, we have Eric, Steve, and Tom. B main, Joe Lam will be starting on pole, Adrian in second, Julian Fu in third, Hao Jiang in fourth, Abun in fifth, Tapana in sixth, Amy in seventh, Blue in eighth. And the A main, our top qualifier of the day, Sean Lee in second, PY Tang. Bunyang in fourth, Mr. Wee in fifth, Asron in sixth, Sebastian Lee in seventh, and Nicola in eighth. A-Main to start at 12:45. It's lunch break. Start at 12:45. It's lunch break. 1, 2, 4, 5. 1, 2, 4, 5. Alright, driver. Amen, driver. CKSRV. Track is open. Amen, driver. Dominic to back.
Okay, we start in 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Three minutes. 3 minutes to start. Okay, we need the marshals from the C main and everyone else to help out because there are only 3 guys in the C main. We'll have a break before the B final, so guys, can we have the B main drivers to help as well? Thank you. Two and a half minutes. Hmm?
You're slow on what?
Okay, track is open. Track is open. Eden Quack. Eden Quack to Marshall. Eden Quack.
1 minute to start. "45 seconds to start. Go to your start position."
Can we have the B main and C main drivers out to Marshall, please?
30 seconds to start. Start. Order. Car 1, car 2.
Starting in the number 8 position here in the A main, Nicholas Mada. In the number 7 position, Sebastian Lee. Starting P6, Hasron Robana. In the number 5 starting position, EC Wee. In the number 4 position, the other Abun, Ko Bun Yang. In the number 3 position, Ismail Apandi. Starting P2, PY Teng. And starting in his first ever pole position here at UTS, Sean Lee. Cars to check in. Track is still live. Track is still open. Marshall's out. B main. And we have Nicholas check in. Yes. Okay. Cars to the grid.
Okay, picture here, everyone. I see Buliang. Here.
Young not supposed to be here, so he's hiding.
Buliang not supposed to be here.
So mommy, he went to study.
Study what? He already finished.
Now we are broadcasting live, of course.
Marshall.
Okay, we have Marshall's. Julian is in position on the right. Thank you. You're not just taking shelter in the shade, right? You're marshalling, right? Yeah. Thank you. Okay, Adrian is in the sun. Thank you. Drivers, remember there's no countdown. You start. Then there's no practice. You know, guys know the tone. Drivers ready. Marshall's ready. We go racing on the tone. Take it easy, guys. Take it easy. Yes, good one. Good patient driving. Oh dear, Ismail rolls it, coming onto the straight and drops all the way to the back. So leave Sean, PY and Brian, followed by EC, Sebastian, Nicholas up one spot, and Hasron. Looks like Ismail decides to call it a day here in leg 1. So leave the racing to leg 2 and 3. Very close fight for second place between Bunyang, another one of our young drivers, and PY Teng, one of our more experienced drivers. Just 0.3 seconds separating Bunyang and PY. Bunyang having a look on the inside, on the front straight.
4 minutes to drive.
All three rivals on the curb. We have the set up, William being very patient. Then we have a small gap to EC, moving up from P5 up into 4th. Nicholas makes another move up. Is now in 5th position after starting on in P8. William, oh no, makes a mistake. And he drops all the way down to 6th position now. That was the closest he had been to P1. And Nicholas very fast now on the tail of EC. Nicholas had a look on the inside. Again, checks up, coming onto the front chicane. Very fast through the chicane. The bright orange car. Nicholas Madar from France. Moved to Singapore about 4 months ago. Made a second home here at Urban. Girlfriend is watching from the side, so he has an extra incentive to do well. Right, the closest battle on track is for 3rd position. EC and Nicholas. Then we have Brunian coming back up in. EC going a bit wide. Coming up to the halfway mark. EC just hanging on now. Nicholas looking like he had a much faster car. No way around. Good clean driving, guys. Good clean driving. Nicholas looking outside, comes in hot. And here comes Bunyang again. And Nicholas had another look on the inside, no way back. EC keeping it very tight. At the start line now, another check up there by Nicholas. Good driving, guys. Good driving. 2 minutes to go. In the meantime, Sean Lee has pulled away with a huge lead. PY all on his own in C2. Nicholas had another look on his side. Bunyang now catching up to the lead, to the position fight. And Hassan as well. Good fight there for 3rd position. The blue, orange, and pink car. EC having to drive exquisite lines to prevent any opening for Nicholas. 1.5 minutes to go. Oh, Nicholas makes a mistake. And Bunyang had to check up there. Oh no, it's a body tap for Nicholas. Okay, clear. Bunyang gave him a helping hand there. But he dropped behind Hasron. Bunyang had a look on his side. What a move there by young Bunyang. Bunyang. 1 minute to go. And that battle there releases EC up into 3rd position. Nicholas will have 40 seconds to make something happen. EC at a 12 flat, Nicholas 11.8, 0.2 faster. 39 seconds to go. Sean Lee all on his own. Big lead, 3.8 seconds.
30 seconds to drive.
30 seconds to go. We have 3 more laps. EC comes in with a 12-1, 12 flat for Nicholas. The lead is 0.6 seconds for EC over Nicholas. Bunyang comes again. 10 seconds to go. This should be the final lap. On to the straight now. Can EC hang on?
Time is over.
Finish the lap you're on.
Finish car. 2.
Oh,
Finish car.
waiting for Sebastian. Waiting for Sean. Sean takes the win here in leg 1. Well done. Good race, guys. Good race. Next up, we'll be running the C main.
Tak nak langgar kau. Aku tak nak langgar. I tried. Alright, next up. C main final number 1. Track is open, drivers. C main final number 1, we have Eric Chu, Steve, and Tom. Please proceed out when you're ready. Please proceed out. Track is open. Sean to taxi. Sean, please stay attack. The rest of the drivers out for marshalling. C main, we have Eric starting on pole, Steve in second, and Tom in third. Please collect your number stickers. In the B main, we have Jolam in first, Adrian in second, Julian Fu in third, Aojang in fourth, Abon in fifth, Tapana in sixth, Amy in seventh, and Blue in eighth. A main drivers out for marshalling, thank you. Now is C main, C main. Please take your number stickers as well. Eric in 1, Steve in 2, Tom in 3. Come on, guys. Come on, come on. Not your turn, Not your turn. You be me. Eric, Steve, and Tom. Eric, Steve, and Tom. Kata nak kau keluar Run. Kau maruk dia. Dia bumper B. Yes, only 3, only 3. Lapan. Apa dia? Point system lah. So waiting on Tom, then we can start off the race. Sayang selalu. Sama. Sometime Run, sometime. Huh? Engkau fastest car on the track, you know or not? Yes. You were the fastest car, literally. Alright, I'm waiting for Tom, then I can close up the straight. I don't need a full marshal, I just need 4 and max. So the A-main drivers, number 8 until 5, 5, 6, 7, 8 out for marshalling, please. A-main 5, 6, 7, 8 out for marshalling. A-main 5, 6, 7, 8 out for marshalling. I don't need all. Qualified number 5, 6, 7, and 8 out for marshalling. 1, 2, 3, 4 come out for marshal later. Yeah, because we only have 3 drivers here. 1, 2, 3, 4 out for marshalling later, okay? Yeah. Come on, guys. Drivers, ready? Marshals, where are the marshals? Abun volunteer marshal sama. Abun so sporting. After this, he's run. Drivers, ready? Marshals ready. Let's go racing. At the start of the tone. Eric, Steve, and Tom. 1, 2, 3. Then Eric from Steve. He is super racy. And he also has a faster car on the straight. Oh, work together, guys, work together. Steve rolls it. Here comes Eric, back up. Here comes Steve. Okay. Tom is in second, Eric in third. Steve, third. Steve has clear traffic ahead of him. Tom is not that far behind. Next up, B-main.
4 minutes to drive.
1 minute down, 4 more minutes to drive. It's Steve from Tom. Here comes Eric. Eric looks to the inside, makes it 6. Eric moves up to second place. So it's Steve, Eric, and Tom. Last time by Steve, 13 flat. Eric 13-2. C, 13-1 Eric. Gap is 2.8 seconds. All three cars through on the same lap. 2 minutes down, 3 more minutes to drive. 13-5 Steve. 12-6 Eric. Gap has gone down to 1.8 seconds. With 2.5 more minutes to race. Steve. Orange car down to the transponder light. Here comes Eric. 13-1 Steve. 12-9 Eric. Gap is 1.5 seconds. 12-8 Steve. 13-1 Eric. Gap gone back up to 1.8 seconds. Next up, B-Main. B-Main drivers, please stand by. B-Main, please get yourself ready. Please take your number stickers. B-Main drivers, please take your number stickers. Less than 2 more minutes to race. It's Steve from Eric from Tom. Gap now is 2.6 seconds. Last time by Steve 13-4. Eric 13-6. This time Steve 13-2. Eric 12-9. Gap down to 2 seconds. 13-4 Steve. 12-9 Eric. Gap down to 1.5 seconds.
One minute to drive.
Less than 1 more minute to race, drivers. Less than 1 more minute. It's still Steve from Eric. Gap is down to 1.4 seconds. Went back up to 3.8. A slow lap there for Eric. Less than 30 seconds to drive. B-Main driver. Get yourself ready,
3
B-Main.
seconds to drive.
B-Main drivers, please get yourself ready. Final 15 seconds. 1-5. Steve from Eric from Tom.
Time is over. Race finished. Finished car.
Eric, you're done. Steve takes the win and waiting for Tom to complete.
Finished.
All drivers complete. B-Main. Let me just announce you. B-Main starting on pole. Julam. In second, Adrian Quack. In third, Julian Fu. In fourth, Aojang. In fifth, Abun. In sixth, Tapana. In seventh, Amy. And in eighth, Blue. Please take your number stickers. Do not start at the wrong position. We will penalize you 10 seconds. Here comes Amy. Excited. He's starting in number 7. Let's see whether he can finish higher than 7. Here comes Julian Fu. After a string of bad luck, can I have the A main drivers first until fourth to come up for marshalling, please? Sean Lee, P.Y. Tang, Ismail, and Bunyang out for marshalling. And the C main drivers out for marshalling as well. Julian is blocking. Adrian is blocking. Here comes Blue, Uncle Joe. It's a Yokomo Infinity Serpent X-Ray 3 Racing X-Ray Yokomo. Good mix of cars from the track. Guys, take it easy. It's only practice. Do not race. We are waiting for Aojang to be on the track. Then I will cruise up. A main drivers 1 to 4 out for marshalling, please. 1 to 4 out for marshalling. C main drivers out for marshalling. All drivers clocking, no more laps. Line up your car. Starting on pole. Joe Lam. Watch it on the straight. Slow down. The straight is slow. Joe Lam starting on pole. Adrian in second. Julian in third. Aojang in fourth. Number stickers, guys. Number stickers. You start at the wrong order. 10-second penalty. Tapana is in 6. Amy in 7 and Blue in 8. Blue, number sticker never take Blue. Blue 10-second penalty lah for Blue. Okay, you number 8 lah, you don't know how to count lah. Blue today wear wrong contact lens lah, Blue. Green color maybe the contact lens. Cannot see properly. Anyway guys, Blue is the first time racer. The virgin run, today he break his virginity. He had to race by force. So, drivers, ready, good luck drivers, let's go racing at the sound of the toe. Watch it, no first corner incident. Clean driving. Watch it happen. Tengok. Body tap for Aojang. I didn't see what happened there. In the lead, Joel Lam. Adrian in second, gap of 1 second. Julian not that far behind. So is Amy all the way up to 4th from 7th. Young man doing super well. He has his sights on Julian Fu. Julian has his sights on Adrian Quack. Joel Lam building a huge gap. Aojang rolls it. Watch it, Abun. Go, Abun. Go. Abun, go. It's Jolam from Adrian, from Julian. Then it's Amy, Blue, Aojang, Bunyang, and Tapana. Work together, guys. Joe Lam is moving into traffic now. Aojang, watch it. You have the leader behind you. Thank you. Arun, watch it. You almost took out Aojang there. Adrian, feeling some pressure from Julian Poole. Last time by, Adrian doing 12-1, Julian 11-9. Let's see this time. Adrian 12 flat, Julian 12 flat. It looks closer on the track now. Adrian the blue car, Julian the green car. Both cars on the long straight, down to the transponder line. Adrian seems to have more speed than Julian. On the infield, Julian has a faster car than Adrian. Last time by, Adrian 12-2, Julian 12 flat. Let's see on this run. Julian went a bit wide. Tapana, please get yourself ready. Abun and Aojang, you are fighting for position. Joe Lam all alone up front. Adrian just lost his second place to Julian. Amy is still in fourth. Joe Lam can just take it easy. It's his dream to take it easy in the B main. Battle closest on the track is between Aojang and Abun. Two sparring partners. But both of them are slower than the young man who is in fourth. 3 minutes down, less than 2 more minutes away. It is still Joe Lam, 11-6 last time by. Julian in second. Adrian is 0.8 seconds behind. Tapana, take it easy. You have Julian Poole on your tail. Watch it there, Aojang. Tapana, please let them pass. Tapana, you are playing for position as well. My apologies. Watch it there, Abun. Aojang. Borita, Abun, wait a while for Tapana. I'm so sorry. You guys were playing for position. Good one there. Good spotting there by Abun. Less than 1 more minute to race. Less than 1 more minute.
1 minute to drive.
Blue, you have second place on your tail. Adrian is only 0.5 seconds behind Julian now. Amy is still a lonely fourth. Blue in fifth. Blue, please open up to Julian, Blue. Adrian rolls it. Marshall, here comes Amy. Amy spins out. Amy and Adrian is fighting for position.
10 seconds.
Blue car and the pink car fighting for third. Blue car and pink car now. 20 seconds left. Adrian in third. Amy in fourth. Last 20 seconds. Here comes Amy on Adrian. Last 10 seconds. Adrian from Amy sweeps the curve down to the transponder line. You should be doing your last lap. This is your final lap.
Time is over. Race finished. Finished.
Joe Lam, you're done.
Finished.
Adrian takes third.
Finished.
Waiting for Julian to pass the line.
Finished. 3. Finished. 8.
All drivers complete. Taking the win. For this run, Joe Lam. Second place, Julian Poole. Close battle there for third between Adrian and Amy. In fifth, Blue in sixth, Aojang in seventh, Tapana, and in eighth, Abun. Next up, Amy.
Okay, aiming, we start at 140, 50 minutes, 140. 140. Announcement for Nicholas, 140. Okay, aim. 5 minutes to start. Minutes to start. Aim, 5 minutes to start. Roll up to tag, please. Roll up. Main drivers, track is open. Tag is open. Joel is in that position. Guys, please get tagged so that we can run. 4 minutes.
Boys, don't run on the ramp. Don't step on the ramps. Okay?
Next up is A-Main number 2. Sean Lee took the win. In A-Main leg 1, PY was second. EC third, Nicholas 4. Bunyang took 5th after very close battles up front. 6th position, Hasroad 7. Sebastian and Easy Apati had a DNS. So the question is, can Sean make it a perfect day? This is A-Main leg 2 coming right up in the next 3 minutes. 3 minutes to start. We'll need marshals from the B and C main. B and C main. Oh, sorry, rather the B main. The B main. The C main you'll be running after this, your second and last final. So B main drivers to marshal, please. So we need Julian, Adrian, Emmy to marshal. Blue, Tapana, Abun. How's on track? Sebastian checks in. Mr. Bundy.
Eric, you want the video? Can video for me? Video tape. The race. Come on.
Sonu. This A main drivers.
You don't always have to follow the leader. That's why I think not starting.
Bonyang, okay?
1 minute to start.
Waiting for Hasron and Nicholas to check in. Check in, please. Nicholas. Please check in, Nicholas.
45 seconds to start. Go to your start position.
Okay, all cars checked in. No more laps. Straight away is closed. Cars to the grid.
10 seconds to start. Start. Order. Car.
After
1,
the grid.
car. 2, car. 3, car. 4, car. 5, car. 6, car. 7, car. 8. 10, 9, 8, 7.
Thank you. So this is A main leg 2, starting in the third position. Sean Lee taking the win in leg 1. Can you do it this time round? Grid is set. Marshals in place. Drivers ready. Marshals ready. Let's go racing on the go. If it is yours, it's taken there by Ismail. Onto the curving. Drop the plate. It's a big break. Thank you. 1, 2, 3. Bunyang moving a plate up to third position. Once again, coming close to CY. The battle is for second place between the cream colored car and the pink car. So Bunyang jumping down second place from CY Tang. Sean Lee has already pulled out a 1 second lead. Up into fourth position is Hassan. There we have Nicholas, Sebastian, and Ismail. DC has pulled out. And Bunyang again, very close, right on the tail of CY Tang. Bunyang looking very punchy indeed to the front ticket. Oh, mistake there by Hassan. Rolls in at the end on the right hand side. Nice hit flip of the curve by CY. Still hangs on to second place. Looks like Sean Lee has checked out on his way to his first win here in UTS. Of course, anything can still happen. We still have more than 3 minutes to go. No way back so far for Bunyang. CY keeps it close.
3 minutes to drive.
The green car and the pink car. That's the battle for second place. Nicholas in 4, Ismail 5, Sebastian 6, Astron 7. And also a very close battle between Ismail and Nicholas. 2.5 minutes, 2.5 to go. Down the straight they go, second and third, fighting for the number 2 spot. There's the other battle between the white and the bright orange car. That's between Nicholas and Ismail. The pair have been going at it. CY rolls over the dots. Bunyang being very patient. Still no opening. Great driving. Less than 2 minutes now. Bunyang had a look on the inside, nothing there. CY protecting all the openings. Bunyang looks to go wide. Not able to make a pass there. Down the front, straight. Oh, CY slips the curb. Bunyang having a run up onto the straight, unable to make a pass. Very equal in terms of power. Another look for Bunyang down the inside. Nothing there. Bunyang look outside, inside. Nothing there. CY running very clean on this very tight circuit. Bunyang, another one of our young Singaporean racers.
1 minute to drive.
Having recently made the move back from China. I mean, very close now. 1 minute to go. Can something happen? The fight for second. Down the front straight. 45 seconds to go. Bunyang checks up. To the chicane. 30 seconds to go. We're looking at
To drive.
3 more laps after this. Great race there by CY and Bunyang. Bunyang rolls onto the curb. Loses a bit of time. Onto the straight they go and they can now come up on Sebastian. It should be 1 more lap after this. Great race. Bunyang look on the inside, nothing there. 1 more lap, this is the final lap.
Race.
Bunyang checks up again, being very patient. Coming onto the straight now. A dash to the line. And CY just fixed it at the line. All cars are down. Sean Lee claims his first win in UTS. CY finishes in second. Bunyang third. Ismail in fourth. Nicholas 5. Astron 6. And Sebastian in 7. Well done guys. Good race. Next up, Seaman. Seaman, you're next. So we ask Sean to man pack. Sean.
Alright, aiming 5 to 8 out for my selecting. 5 victim out for my selecting teammate. Get yourself ready. If all the drivers out, the main drivers, please get yourself ready. Starting on pools, Eric, second is Steve. And in third is Tom. Alright, drivers ready? Let's go racing at the sound of the toe. Eric from Steve and Tom. Eric went a bit sideways there. Hitting the curb. Here comes Steve. To Eric from Steve. Both cars are equally matched. Down to the chicane.
6, 9,
The right hairpin.
5.
Eric rolls it.
4 minutes to drive.
All cars still on the same lap. It's Steve from Eric. Gap is 1.5 seconds. Next up, B main driver, Steve by, B-Main.
3 minutes to drive.
2 minutes past, less than 3 more minutes to it. Full speed from Eric, from Tom, all on the team left. Speed went a bit sideways there, the start of straight. Three minutes past, 2 more minutes left. Still key from Eric, from Tom. Watch it there, arrow straight, watch it, arrow straight. Clear, clear, clear.
Snap. 39,38.
Two leaders are back together again. Gap only 0.5 seconds with 1.5 minutes left. Tom, your car is broken. Your car is broken. Can someone please help Tom?
One minute to drive.
Last 1 minute. Battle is still on between the two. Steve and Eric. Gap is only 0.5 seconds between the two. Steve clears the curb. Here comes Eric. Steve clears the curb again. There goes Eric on top spot with 45 seconds left. Eric from Steve. Both cars are chicane. Down to our right hairpin. The right and the left down to the long straight. Something's not right with Eric's car. It's not moving anymore. We are only left with one car on the track. Marshall. Sini Taiki. Watch it. And it is only Steve left with 5 more seconds. 3, 2, 1. Complete the lap you're on. Steve, the only survivor, takes the win. Lone survivor. Next up, B-Main. B-Main drivers. B-Main drivers. Amy is already out. Previous final we had Jolam, Bulempu, Adrian. That was 1, 2, 3. Amy was in 4th.
What happened, Owen? Yeah. Damn it.
B-Main, this is your last final. Make it count. Amy, do not stop there yet. Amy, don't stop there. Bulempu on the track. Here comes Tapana V. Oh, nice race. Tapana's clocking, Julian's clocking. Adrian is clocking. Amy, do not stop at the straight, Amy. Abur is clocking. I see new colors for Haojang. Haojang is clocking. Waiting for Blue and Uncle Joe. Aiming drivers, 1 until 4, please come out for marshalling. Aiming drivers. Alright, no more laps, no more laps. Please line up your cars. Starting on pole, Joe Lam. And second, Adrian Quack. Third, Julian Poo. And fourth, Haojang in fifth, Boon Yang. In sixth, Tapana V. Amy in 7. And Blue in 8. Sorry, Abun Nene. Tired already. Where are the top 4 of the evening? Please come up for marshalling. Come on, guys. If you don't have enough marshal, I need to start off the race. Can I have someone at the chicane, please? The driver at the chicane for marshalling.
Video.
Okay, drivers, ready? Good luck, drivers. Let's go racing at the time of the show. Watch it there, Julian. Hang on a while, Julian. Body shell. Haojang body shell. Amy is also gone. All drivers out, all drivers. Bring out the car, out. No Lam. All alone. Ong Chibun in second. Tapana B. In third, Blue went sideways there. Adrian, watch it. Body shell for Blue. Wire run there. Well, I'm all alone up front. I think the heat is getting on, everyone. Tapana and Boon is the closest battle on the track. 0.7 seconds. Blue, please open up to Abun. Oh, watch it. Oh, yo. I'm clipping the curb on the straight. Joe Lam rolling all on his own. The pole at the straight. Pole at the straight. Sean, can you please run to the pole at the straight and pull it in? Sean, you run over to the straight. Alright. Back to normal driving. 2.5 gone, 2.5 left. Blue and Haojang, you are fighting for position. Tapana lost from third place to Julian Poo. Julian having his sights on Abun. Roland starting to pull a gap from Abun. Blue tight blue tight blue. From the supporters, so watch it there, Aljam. Oh, nice pass there. Amy is not that far behind as well. He is also playing competition. Oh, watch it there, Amy. Blue, please. Oh my God. Adrian, my advice in the future is please wait. Pulling the car around is not that fun. Rolam has a 0.7 lead from Julian. With the orange car and the green car both on the infield. With 1 more minute left. Watch it there, Blue. The leaders are coming up to the tail. Please open up to them. 1 more car. Oh, Blue. Blue. The fight is on between Julian and Joe. 8 to tail down to the chicane. Julian on top spot. Joel Lam in second. With 30 seconds left.
30 seconds to drive.
Final 30 seconds. 30 seconds. My ping. Last 20 seconds. 2-0. Watch it at the transponder line. Last 10 seconds. Joel took to the inside. Nice move. A block pass by Joel. Here comes Julian. Is he going to retaliate? You are racing to the line. Joe takes the win. In second. Abu in third. Aljam Precious in sixth. And Blue in eighth. All drivers complete. Everyone's racing like there's no tomorrow. Everything was caught on video. Next up, the A-Main. Last run of the day. It's 2:09. Record time. We finish them early. 2:09. A-Main will start at 2:15. Stop 2:15. A-Main will 2:15.
Okay, guys, 5 minutes to start. 8, leg to start. So to tag, please, Dr. Joe. Okay, everyone up to Marshall. Everyone up to Marshall. Sean Lee, are you running, Sean Lee? Sean Lee. Next up, Amin, leg 3. Sean has taken the overall win, but the rest of the podium still to be decided. T.Y. Tang, Bunyang. Will decide the second or third. Track is open.
Why? Sao lại đây?
What's that?
Blue. He is at the back.
Okay, waiting for EC and Hasron to check in, please. Hasron, please check in. Okay, no more lap, no more lap. Straight away it's closed. Comes to the grid. Thank you, Adrian. We need the B-main drivers to Marshall, please. B-main drivers. Okay, we have a few below. Julian Fu to Marshall. Julian. Abun to Marshall. Yep. Okay, grid is set. It's been a wonderful 2 days so far. Very clean. Thank you so much, guys. Let's have another good race here. Aim in leg 3. Drivers ready. We go racing on the go. Sean leads the way again. Ismail this time. Still in contention, a slight bike, but he goes through into second place, seizing the opportunity there. And oh no, EC has a body start. Okay, he settles, but drops down to 8th position. So we have Sean, Ismail, PY, Bunyang, Nicola, Hasron, Sebastian, and EC. Very close battle up front. Very close in front, Sean Lee. Already the winner, but deciding to run leg 3. Now he has Ismail on his tail. Sean holding his line. Not giving any room there to Ismail. Equal power down the straight. Watch it. Oh, okay, thank you. Ismail has a look on the inside. Decides to be patient. Running in third position is Bunyang. Then we have Nicola up to 4th. Sean going the white line. Pulls us in at the right side. Ismail. Oh, between. Bunyang goes into the lead. Inheriting that fight. Bunyang in the lead. And Bunyang for once has clear track in front of him. Sean holding on to second. And here comes the rest of the freight train.
3 minutes to drive.
Ismail, left, right, looks and inside. And now that is thrown up by the field as Hasron goes up to second. Nicola in third. Sean in fourth. Ismail in fifth. Big lead now for the pink car, Bunyang. Where the halfway mark. Ismail goes past up into fourth position. Hasron second, Nicola in third. Then we have Ismail and Sean. These are your top 5. PY in 6th. Steph and EC. What's the timing, Ismail?
2 minutes to drive.
2 minutes to go. Huge lead now for Bunyang. 1 minute and 50 seconds remaining. The pink car is your leader, So Boon Yang. Recently made the move back to Singapore. Then we have Hasron starting number 6. The other pink, black and white car. In second, the bright orange car, Nicola from France. In third position, then we have Sean from Upper Changi. In fourth position, Ismail from Marine Parade. Fix the dots. That battle is raging on. Slight opening of the door there by Sean. Goes onto the curb. Ismail makes a move on the inside. Goes past it. Goes past into fourth position. Now he has Nicola in front of him with 1 minute to go. Oh, Ismail goes on two wheels. Sean takes advantage. Unable to as Ismail comes back into fourth position. 35 seconds to go. But Boon Yang has checked out.
30 seconds to drive.
30 seconds to go. Ismail and Nicola and Sean Lee fighting for third position. So I look on the inside. Sean goes wide. Great racing action here. Last 10 seconds on the master clock. This should be the final lap.
Time is over.
Time is over. Race to the line. Boon Yang is not done. Finish the line. Finish the lap.
Finish 8. Finish 3. Finish 1. Finish 2.
And Boon Yang takes the win.
Finish 5. Finish 4.
All cars are done.
Okay, this track is open. You can play here now. Just be careful of the other car. Watch it, there's another car.